I ended up at Case Western Reserve in a little bit of an odd way. I wanted to be a doctor originally, and I went to Tufts and was pursuing sort of a pre-med and chemical engineering degree. I was a disaster in pre-med. That took a while to accept. And I was doing great in all my chemical engineering classes. So I thought, well, that's good. I'll keep doing this. And I finished up at Tufts and wasn't sure what to do then, and applied to several graduate schools because I wasn't ready to hit the job market. So I actually applied to Case Western Reserve and was accepted at the engineering school. But I applied to a couple of other schools, including Cornell, and I got into the Cornell graduate program, and I went there. And the first day of class, I woke up and said, what am I doing with my life? I had some friends over the course of the summer that were going to law school, and I was in touch with them, and they loved law school. I had a nephew that wanted to go to law school. And by coincidence, I took a course in environmental law at Cornell, and I loved the course. It wasn't just because of environmental law, but it was the study of law. And I was concerned because until then I had been deriving formulas and spending all my time with numbers, and reading a full sentence was thrilling to me. So I immediately started looking at law schools. I took the LSAT. Being a very impatient person, I did not study or prepare for it and did not do all that well, and still wanted to go to law school. And I applied to several schools. And because I grew up in Lorraine, which is close to Cleveland, and I had very high regard for Case, and had also been admitted to the graduate school, I thought that'd be a great opportunity. I had a friend from high school who was attending, and I visited the school, and she showed me around, and I really liked it. And I got in, and I immediately accepted. I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I definitely did not wake up the first day of school at Case Western Reserve asking, what am I doing with my life? It really was, from the very beginning, a very enjoyable experience for me. I lived in dorms for the first 2 years, and then I lived in Cleveland Heights my third year. And I really enjoyed living in a dorm. I think it was Storrs House, which was not too far from the law school. I had a neighbor who was a swimmer, and I had a couple of other friends at the law school who were swimmers. I was scared to death of swimming, but I knew I needed some exercise. So I brought my old clunky bike to school, and I used to take my bike over to the where the pool was at that time, which was way on the other side of campus. And regardless of what the temperature was or anything, I really became obsessed with swimming. My friends taught me how to swim, and that was another part of law school that was really important to me. It helped my focus, and it made life enjoyable. And it was something I had never been able to accomplish, and now I was doing it, and I was really happy with that. I knew that with this engineering background, I thought I really should do something with this. And so patent law was natural for me. And I had a locker mate who also had an engineering background and was going to go to law school. And so we used to visit and talk about this. I started to take all the courses in intellectual property that I could. There was a professor there at the time, Regan Fay, who was practicing at a firm in Cleveland. And I took a couple of courses from him in patents, as I recall. And then there was a trademark course, which I loved trademarks. And then I took a copyright course with Susan Jaros. The copyright law had just changed. And so we spent a whole semester going back and forth with what the old copyright law was and what the new copyright law was. And I absolutely enjoyed Susan Jaros. That was really a huge impact on me, being able to all the intellectual property courses that I had at the school. I also got involved with moot court because I was interested in litigation and was thinking of being a litigator, and thought this would be a good experience. And I wasn't good enough to be on the law review. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for me. So I think I did that the second year. And as I recall, I did pretty well. And I ended up on the Jessup International Moot Court team. And that was what I did my third year. And that was with Sidney Picker, who I had in a couple of courses in international law that I was also looking at. And I made some really good friends, one of whom is still a very good friend of mine. And that was a wonderful experience. We were competitive. We did well in the region, and I remember we ended up at University of Michigan. We didn't go beyond that, but it was very exciting to be part of this team of people, and that was something that I have a great memory of from the school. I started at Case in the fall of '79. And the experience there, being in University Circle, was something that really attracted me. I'm a big orchestra lover. I attended Cleveland Orchestra concerts throughout my time at Case. And I also used to study across the street or across the road, whatever you call it, at the Botanical Garden, not at the Art Museum, but the Botanical Garden had a great garden. And I was then a big gardener, and I still am today. I'm at our house in Connecticut, and we have wonderful gardens, and it's always been a lot of fun for me. So I used to go around and visit the garden, but just go to the library and pick up a couple of books, and then between classes I would study and then go over back to the law school. Certainly at the art museum, we used to go there for lunch. That was sort of our fun Friday thing, would be to have lunch at the art museum and walk around and spend a little bit of time. At that time, I had not really dealt with my sexual orientation. It was something that, as I was growing up, it was sort of lonely and thinking I must be the only person in the world that had these thoughts. I came from a very loving family, but extremely traditional, and these things were not discussed. And in college, I had some situations that came up where I had to think about it. And finally, in law school, a few occurrences naturally happened. And I then sort of went into a crisis mode because this wasn't who I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to have 12 children and have a big family, but there were parts of that weren't quite fitting well together. So there was someone at the university who helped me a lot. In addition to my friends, I started talking to my friends, and the school had a counselor who helped me, and then got me with someone else to spend time with. And I talked to my parents at that point about it, my family, and it was a very I would not call it a painful process. It was really it was a real relief coming to that acceptance. And I use the word acceptance carefully, but it was something that I really resisted. But once it was there, it was so natural. It was sort of like giving up the chemical engineering and wanting to go into law. It was just a natural point of my life that I was ready to do this. And I've never had any second thoughts about this. And I do realize people go through a variety of experiences when they're dealing with these and other issues that we're becoming more sensitive to now. But it really was a wonderful experience for me to be at Case when I was going through that, and I thought it was a nurturing environment for that. I wanted to practice intellectual property law. Cleveland, I spent one summer clerking at a firm in Houston, actually, a patent firm. And then I clerked with a firm in Cleveland, which I'm sure is no longer in business. It was a small firm. It was a great environment for me. The first time I had to, back then we didn't have computers. We had a weighing machine in the room next to me where there was a word processor. That was really high tech. That was a great experience, but I wanted to go to a bigger city. I ended up in Chicago, and that was another absolutely incredible experience for me. I went to a wonderful patent firm, and with yet another group of nurturing people, and everything from the people in the mailroom all the way up to the senior partners. It was a very friendly environment and a really good place for me. What started to happen though was this original enjoyment with trademark law was something that it kept coming back to me. So I started looking, and at that point I was more confident about living in New York, and Chicago, in my view, did not have adequate trade firms that did really strong trademark work. I came upon my firm, and there's a whole story about how I got that job. And the only comment I'll make on that, a lot of students often call me because of all of the celebrities that I represented. My name was associated with them in the patent and trademark office. So they would go to say, oh, I wonder who does so-and-so's work, and they'd see my name, and then they would call me and say, oh, I love so-and-so. I want to go to law school, or I'm in law school. I want to study intellectual property. What do you think about this? And the one story I would tell them was to persevere when you're looking for work. It is so hard when you're coming out of law school and you have limited experience. And it really is too long of a story to tell here. But the bottom line is I have a rejection letter from my firm that I got 3 days after I'd interviewed with another partner there. And when I got it, I called him, and he said, disregard that letter. And I was hired and stayed there from 88 until June 30 of this year. So I always talk to students about looking for a job, getting a job. You don't want to be pushy. It's so hard when you want to do something, but you also need to pursue all the avenues. And in that case, it was just really a great connection. And I do wonder sometimes what would have happened had I not had that odd course of events and all of these people that went into building it. But it ended up really being, I'm quite certain, the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. I loved my firm. I got involved deeply in the management of the firm. But the best part is that we had a handful of entertainment firms that we worked with, mainly in Los Angeles. And I got to know some of those lawyers. And those lawyers then introduced me to other lawyers. And then the lawyers move around a lot in Los Angeles, or they used to. And these people would go and they'd end up at another firm, and they would introduce me to the friends at their firm. And it really resulted in maybe a half of my practice being devoted to entertainment clients just to clarify, doing the trademark work. And the industry also evolved a lot. And entertainment people went from just, being an actor or a musician into branding and starting other businesses. And that's what I spent a lot of my time doing, was working with celebrities who are starting up. Originally it was clothing businesses and fragrances, but it has evolved now to every kind of conceivable area people are going into. And that sort of is where I got an ish, where people knew I could work with these people. Jim Henson Company was a client. It was a client of the firm going way back. And in 1990, I started to work with them. They no longer own Disney acquired the Muppets a number of years ago, but Henson still does a lot of puppetry work. And they were a riot to work with. The partner that I worked on the account at the time, they had a beautiful townhouse in the 60s in Manhattan. And we would go to a meeting, and they had a boardroom that had, it was called the Kermitage Collection, based on the Hermitage Collection. And there was Kermit dressed like the Blue Boy at the end of this very serious boardroom with this huge painting of him. And then there was Miss Piggy on a grand piano ready to start performing. And we would go to these meetings, and we'd be headed back in the taxi. I would laugh through these meetings so hard. They always had the kookiest things, and it required a lot of care so they could get away with, and they occasionally got into trouble, but they always managed to get out of it. But I said to her, gosh, I don't know if I can bill for this. This was so funny. She looked at me very seriously. She said, you can bill for it. Don't worry about it. This is before I was a partner. And they were a wonderful client. So they did a video where they created a Lawrence Eli applesauce puppet. And he was interviewing who is going to be his successor.
I am so glad that you're applying to replace me as outside trademark counsel to the Jim Henson Company. I mean, I would hate for that lovely group of folks to be without reliable advice once I retire. Now, shall we go through some basics?
Oh, Lair. Pass it on. I got the job, right?
I take it back! I'm not retiring. I couldn't possibly. Colleagues, I'm sorry. I take it all back. I'll be in the office first thing Monday morning.
And when I saw that, I was so taken aback and so highly complimented and thankful that they would do something like that. It was really a treat. I felt strongly, and I still feel strongly, that you should let other people manage things, do things, run things, and not cause a backup on the highway by staying around because either you have an ego that is so big that only I can handle this, or that there just isn't anyone that could possibly replace me kind of attitude. Because believe it or not, there is. And a close friend of ours just passed away today, actually, who was a lawyer at a firm here in Connecticut. And she was 81. This happened very quickly. And when I was going through my retirement, she talked to me and she said, I always wanted to retire and I just didn't know how, or I couldn't get around to it. And it hurts. I mean, this is so fresh. I don't want to start crying, but it hurts to see someone who was such a good person and had so much in her, to have not had opportunities to do certain things that I think she would have liked to do and could have done. So that sort of reinforces in my mind that it's important to let go and move on. And I got concerned that if I kept practicing, it was going to get harder and harder to leave. And initially there was a lot of resistance and no one believed me because I really it was bad. I worked until 10 o'clock at night and a lot of people criticized me for that, but I really enjoyed it. And that's what I did. And I'm not going to apologize. And, but when I was about 60, and after we changed this rule, I said, I want to retire when I'm 67. And so I did a little bit longer. I stuck around for another year, but I just felt it was important to give other people the opportunity to do things and not have someone overseeing them. And there are a lot of things that I want to do, including staring out the window and enjoying the beautiful view that we have from this house. And I'm not embarrassed about that at all. The school, I couldn't think more highly of it. Most importantly, I have a lot of partners that went to Ivy League law schools, and none of them speak as highly as I do about Case Western Reserve. And in fact, most of them do not have the best of memories from their years. I will say, honestly, I think the ones that went to Columbia, I will name a good school. I think the ones that went to Columbia Law School seem to have had better experiences than some of the other ones that might come to mind. And I never felt like that at Case. I felt like it was a group of good people, good professors, very solid, and that we were given a lot of room to grow and try things out. And I really appreciate that. I really am deeply honored. I really don't think I deserve it and don't know where this came from, but I am honored with this. And I'm really happy to remain part of the community. I love Cleveland. I Zillow every neighborhood in Cleveland like a couple times a month to check things out in case we do decide to move there someday. And I really, though, it's the love of Cleveland, but it's also love of the university. And most importantly, the people that were associated with it when I was there. And to the extent I have relationships with people there now, the ongoing, the wonderful people that really make up the university.